I'm so happy to see everybody, members and visitors, and it's just great. It always fuels to my soul when to see all these writers and hopefuls, and it's just amazing. I am Linda Brody, for those who don't know me. Has it been? But anyway, we will get started with our program. This is, okay, we did the Lubbock Book Festival, and I was very happy to see the people who came were ones who wanted to buy. They weren't browsers. They didn't pay to get in to just pass the time. So most bought, and I was very happy. It went a lot better, which surprised me, than at the library. But at the library, we were so scattered, and it was hard to find everybody and all the nooks and crannies and where they had stuck us. So I think it helped to have everybody all together. But anyway, I don't know what they're going to do next year, but we'll see. But I was happy about this one. We have to vote on a new board today. The slate of officers that has been presented is President-elect Kim Harris, Treasurer. It's kind of open if anybody wants to take it. If they don't, I guess I'll be doing it. Programs is me. Social media and publicity, Jaden Garrett Salter. And so we still have, open. We have the open ones. Where did you put that? Oh, okay. Hospitality's open. Technical support. And the treasurer job. Does anybody want to volunteer or to take any of those? If there is, Bradley is still going to be treasurer, and membership, which I'm so thankful. Thank you, Bradley. And Mathis is still going to record our program. KJ is still going to do the newsletter. Yay! Yay! That's a big one. And she does such a good job. It's very, very well and seamless from Mathis to you, and it was very seamless. So, can I get a motion to accept these as written? If nobody...
Make a motion to accept those as written.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay. Okay. The emotion, okay. So, all in favor, raise your hands. Okay. Okay, we have a new board, yay. So, thank you all. I'm just so grateful for the help and all of that. It's time to renew your membership. So, don't forget, we need the money. Our bank account is getting kind of low. So renew your membership if you enjoy coming to the meetings and provide. Just sign up. It's only $40, or you can pay at the door every time you come for $5. We have a Christmas party next month, so we won't have a regular meeting. This will be the last regular. We are working on a game, another interactive game. I think everybody really enjoyed last year's. That was so fun. It was very fun, and thank you, Kim. And
I can tell about the game if you want.
oh, sure, come and tell. Okay. Good morning.
As Linda said, last year, I think most of y'all were here last year, we had a murder mystery game. There were different roles. It's going to be the same. We're doing another game from the same company. It's called Bad Santa, and I'm just going to read you a little bit about it. A master of deception, the reclusive Christopher Claus tricked many people into attending what he referred to as the most wondrous party of the year. After everyone arrived at Claus Manor, Christopher had his staff lock the guests inside with no chance of escape. The partygoers were shocked to see Christopher wearing a Santa suit in a faraway location pop onto a monitor in the living room. He warned that someone would be leaving in a coroner's bag. And so there are riddles with this, and we'll have the roles and everything. And so I think we will do what we did last year and email out a list of the characters, and you guys can decide what characters you want to be, and we can kind of get that in place ahead of time. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you definitely want to be here in December for that. All right? Oh, it's called Bad Santa.
When is the party going to be?
Oh, that sounds very fun. We'll also have a lot of treats. If you want to bring a treat for the table.
Yeah, it's December 9th.
We'll have a lot. And so we will eat and laugh. Get ready to laugh. The raffle is back at the back, and we have so many good prizes, from writing manuals or self-help books to baked bread and candy, writerly things that we all need, which is lots of chocolate. There's only one. So the tickets are $1 a piece. You can buy 5 for $3 or 7 for 10. Oh, 5. 10 for $5. Okay.
It's 7 for 5 and 13 for 10.
Oh, okay, 13 for 10. Okay. So, if you want to go look and put your money in and get a ticket, that'd be great. You can still do that. Our school drive is about to end. We are collecting everything that teachers need to help their students, Kleenex and lotion and pencils and paper, all kinds of stuff. There's a list in the newsletter if you want to look at that. And so I think, are we going to bring it next month too?
If you forgot this month, I will. Next month will be great. I'll bring my big cart, and so that if you bring anything, we can store it. But this is the last raffle.
Okay.
This is the last raffle for our book fair.
Right, this is the last raffle.
For
We'll
this.
have it next month. So lunch.
Well, we will have a raffle next month, but it's going to be for our birthday party.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's no raffle next month for that event's been pushed back. That event's been pushed back, so there won't be a raffle for that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so, lunch. I know we're having a hard time finding a good place that, does anybody have any suggestions? Did you like Caprock or Picasso's or Benito's? We need to decide where we're going.
I'm just saying Benito's wasn't bad.
It had the room. It had the room, but there were some things, I know some guys left hungry. Their portions were small. But I don't know, where do you want to go? Do you have another place, a different place in mind? We're open.
How about Caprock? Is it close?
Yeah.
Yeah, Caprock is closed down there on, what is it,
34th and,
34th and Indiana?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess it'll be Caprock. Can someone call? Okay, you'll call and tell them to expect us, so that I'll be surprised.
Can we get a number?
Get your hands up pretty
For
high.
lunch, raise your hands. You're not leaving, we're not gonna let you leave.
Okay. Thank you. Got it.
We're gonna do a short 10-minute segment called Author Spotlight. Dan Spencer is going to do that, and we are thrilled to hear from. I am thrilled. I've always, I don't know that much about Dan, so he's going to tell us.
My cheat sheet. I publish under the name Dan Dwayne, even though my last name is Spencer. And the reason for that is because when I started looking at publishing, there was a multitude, a numerous plethora of Dan Spencers out there, all separated by their middle names. So I thought, well, I'll just drop my middle name and go by Dan Dwayne, which it does not appear on my books anywhere. However, it keeps popping up. The library has me listed as Dan Spencer, and you have to look under S-P-E-N in fiction to find me instead of Dwayne. So just to know, if you were looking for my books in the library, I will be under S-P-E-N instead of D-W-A-Y. So, anyway, I'm an old school teacher. What do school teachers do when we retire? We publish books and write books, so there we go. I started out writing mystery, and I wrote a mystery novel and a mystery novella, and then I thought, oh well, this has been fun, but I got inspired to do something else, and I wrote a historical fiction, and that's this one here. It's different, so I wrote it under a different name. This is the name I go by on Tuesdays and Fridays, Liam Shea. So, this one is about the takeover of Carlsbad Caverns in 1979 by 4 terrorists. Now, this is my interpretation of that story. There is very little on the internet as public record. However, they shot in the caverns, they held 100 people at gunpoint, they asked for a ransom, and not one felony charge was filed against them. And so that's the story. Exactly why? I'm not going to find it on the internet anywhere. In this book, it's fiction, remember, but it is my assumption of what might have happened, okay? Now, there's two timelines in this particular story. One is a couple that's getting married and going to Carlsbad for their honeymoon, and the other one is the bad guys fixing to take over the caverns. Set it up like this because my wife and I married on July the 6th of 1979 and went to Carlsbad for our honeymoon, and then they immediately took over the caverns. So I'm invested in the story. That was the week from hell. I mean, it's the best week of my life. I got married, but the whole universe is saying, don't go to Carlsbad. Did we? Yeah, we did. And so there you go. And all the things that are written in here are, I've had people say, this can't happen. No one's going to believe that this actually did. I mean, down to the point that a motorcycle gang shot through the wall of our apartment into our apartment. Yes. I mean, all this stuff actually did happen to us. On our wedding night, a pipe broke between the ceiling in the hotel, which will remain nameless. I'm sorry. And, but it's a fact. It did happen. And it rained in our hotel room. And they had exterminated the hotel, and they didn't realize that the presidential suite, which was a lot more money than the honeymoon suite, had not been cleaned up.
Oh no.
So they moved us to the presidential suite for a little extra cash. And, I mean, still, they didn't. And it was covered with dead cockroaches. They hadn't cleaned it up. This was our wedding night. So all that's in here, like I told you, the week from hell. So this is under the name Liam Shea. Then I turned to writing urban fantasy. And I wrote what I call a biblio-fantasy because it's set at the time of Christ. It's called The Secret King. It is about a boy who grew up with Christ. It's not about Christ at all, not about Jesus, but it's about the boy. And he has his own story, his own claim to fame, as you might call it. And he shows up in the Bible, in my opinion, because there are many characters in the Bible who are just kind of mentioned and it just goes on. And we don't even know their names. But who would you invite to your wedding? But old friends. So in this particular story, this boy gets married in Canaan. And he is the old friend of Jesus. And so it goes on from there. But my latest writing is about a group of teens that are empowered, supernaturally empowered, to champion a war between the favored angels and the fallen angels and their demons. I've been accused of writing bubblegum horror, so people are like, where do you get your inspiration? Even at the book festival, this was something that someone stopped and said, you've got so many different things. Where did you get your inspiration for something? And a writer's mind is really weird. We think about things and we meditate about things, and then pops up in our brain some seed of inspiration, and there we go. We take it from there. When I was writing Premeditated Pandemonium, I actually was thinking about nuclear explosions and why don't they make atomic bombs out of the hardest substance on Earth, which is crystals or diamonds. But what if they could? What would happen? What would the explosion be like if they could take the hardest substance on Earth and split the atom? I think it would be pretty powerful. Boom. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about when I wrote Pandemonium. So are there nuclear devices in that story? Yes, but it kind of goes down to the end. I'm giving it away. I have a children's book out. I have a monograph of my own artwork. I have a coloring book for children that I have illustrated. We're talking about what gave me inspiration. But this book in particular I like to work at the Cactus. It's my weekend gig. I go down there and become the jack of all trades for the Cactus. And on the way, especially in the wintertime, it's dark because, you know, the sun goes down so early in this time frame. And I would pass a truck stop. It had diesel on the canopy. But the only neon lights that lit up were die, die, die. I'd see it every time I went there. They didn't fix it, it just kept going. And I thought, there's a story there. So, the first chapter that I wrote for Amber, looking at the neon flash, die, 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 I started sweating. And thought of driving made me nervous enough without that dumb canopy proclaiming death. Damn, we were dead meat, and it would be my fault. I wished I could tell Jimmy what I saw, but how could I? It sounded completely insane to me, and it was right there, glowing in my face. But nobody else can see it because he's a prophet. And Azure, I wanted to read just a little bit for you. He's 16 years old. He doesn't know in the first book that he is a prophet, so he starts seeing and hearing things, and he thinks he's going nuts, which anybody would. But in the second story, they have a handle on kind of what's going on. So we enter the story jumping and running. But they're still 16 years old. And they still have to go to school. With school in session, there I sat in Old Lady Wheeler's Spanish class 2. Chad turned and leaned across Beth Finley's desk and handed me a folded note, my name clearly scrawled across it. I looked over at Chad and he tilted his head toward Blonde, smoothing her we thought flipped-out hairdo with both hands. It was Sarah Hampton, Jimmy Dugan's ex-girlfriend. I've always had a crush on her. Besides being the most popular girl at school, maybe her reputation for being wild titillated my youthful imagination. Truth be told, I never had an actual girlfriend. I suppose the reason is that I looked like I was 12 years old, when in reality I would turn 16 in 2 days, on Friday, September the 26th. What girl wants a boyfriend everyone thinks is her little brother? No one, that's who. Flower, the woman who explained my gift to me, and saved my sanity, said that because of my gift, I wouldn't age like other people. She said, I couldn't be sure, but perhaps I might live as long as Methuselah. And he lived 969 years. I can't imagine that. But one truth remained. Girls don't go for prepubescent boys. I unfolded the note, and sure enough, it had Sarah's signature at the bottom. Over that she wrote, XXO, XOXO. Your groovy eyes made me quiver. Even more exciting, she had written in red lipstick. As much as I would like to think she was into me, I doubted it. My amber eyes had gotten me out of trouble more times than I could count, but they never before affected Sarah, one way or the other. Like I said, her last boyfriend was Jimmy Dugan, and there was no comparison between Jimmy and me. So why should she send me this note? I looked up at her, primping her hair. She stopped and gave me a coy smile before blowing me a kiss from across the classroom. I pretended to catch it in midair and stuck it into the front pocket of my blue denim bell bottoms. The motion drew Old Lady Wheeler's attention in my direction. Arnold. And then she says something in Spanish I can't say, and I wrote it in because I had help with that. I responded with a very unintelligent, huh? Beth whispered, what is the answer to question 6? I looked down in my book, but nothing made sense. I don't know the answer, Miss Wheeler. En español, por favor, she demanded. No se la resquete. I knew that phrase. I had used it often, and it was still September. There was a lot of school year ahead, and I shuddered at the thought. Old Lady Wheeler turned red in the face and stood up at her desk. It wasn't a secret. I had stepped on her nerve at least once every day since school started, but this was different. She appeared to be more angry than usual. She opened her mouth, and I thought she was going to yell at me and scold me for my lack of attention, but instead, she clasped her hands over her chest and collapsed onto the floor. At first, no one knew what to do. We sat there staring at our teacher, convulsing and writhing and shaking. Her eyes glazed over, and then her body became still. My friend Rose ran out the door, calling over us, "I'll get the school nurse!" Sarah started screaming like an Irish banshee. Everyone else stared hard. Being a part-time lifeguard at the seashore swim pool, I knew CPR. Still, the shock of seeing her crumple to the floor like that made me hesitate. Gathering my wits, I ran to Miss Wheeler and started rhythmically pumping her chest. Principal Richard Hammond rushed in and saw me kneeling over her. He pushed me away, yelling, "Loveless, what have you done to your teacher?" "I'm trying to save her life," I shouted back as I struggled to get free of his grip. Nurse Hart had burst through the door right behind the principal. Rose came in only a few steps afterward. The nurse called out, "Mr. Hammond, don't stop him. He's doing fine." Her authoritative tone diffused the tension in the room. Hesitantly, he let me go, and I resumed my efforts to revive Miss Wheeler. "Keep up the good work, young man," Nurse Hart said as she tried to get a pulse and even fastened a blood pressure cuff to Miss Wheeler's arm. Honestly, I didn't see the need. After all, if she couldn't find a pulse, how was she going to get a reading on blood pressure? Hang in there, Maggie. You're going to get through this," Nurse Hart promised. I knew they were friends, but I didn't know Miss Wheeler's first name was Maggie. Friends or not, how could she make that promise? As far as I could tell, Miss Maggie Wheeler was already dead. I simply followed protocol, continuing CPR until an emergency medical team arrived. To my surprise, as soon as the medical technicians got there, they didn't declare her dead. Instead, they strapped her to a gurney and loaded her into an ambulance. They told Principal Hammond I may have saved her life. Only time would tell. He looked my way and huffed, doubt written in his face. If Jimmy had done the same thing, Principal Hammond would have showered him with accolades. I believe it had something to do with my childish appearance. No one took anything I did seriously. The Spanish 1 teacher, Miss Crenshaw, came into the class to help keep order until the bell. I thought a lot of us should have been excused to go home, but we weren't. After all, we had been traumatized by the sight of our teacher writhing on the floor, all except for me and perhaps Rose McFarland. We had seen far worse battling that angel horde. "Well, mighty prophet, did you see that coming? Did you?" Mr. Dark's gravelly voice came from his usual corner in my mind. And being a part of me, he could hear my thoughts. "You know, I can't see the future all the time," I silently replied. "What good is a prophet who can't see the future?" "Mr. Dark, shut up, just shut up," I muttered. The bell rang, and I hurried off to the second period gym, with self-doubt looming over me closer than the demons. Mr. Dark claimed was walking the halls of the school.
My goodness, you need to be a narrator for ACX or your voice, oh God. You have such a good voice. And he also makes jewelry and plays the piano, and he's very talented. Our speaker, I've known him for a long time, and he and his wife Liz used to come to all of our book signings, and they would always show up wherever we were, and before he was published. And now, look at him, 4 books, and he's working on a 5th, and I'm so happy that to see him reach his dream. We all need to reach our dreams, and anyway, we can, or however old we are when we get there. So, he happened to have a birthday. And we have a gift for him. Happy birthday, Bill. So I'm going to turn this over to Kim to introduce him, and we'll get started.
Good morning again. I was fortunate to meet Bill and Liz. Has it been like 8 years now? We attended the West Texas Writers Academy together and have stayed in touch ever since. Okay, hang on. I've got my bio here. Bill Briscoe grew up in the oil and gas refinery town of Phillips in the Texas Panhandle. Bill describes it as a perfect place to grow up. I don't know if I've told you this, but I grew up in Walker, right by there. After graduating from college with a master's degree in education, Bill spent most of his career working for a major insurance company as an agency manager and consultant. About 5 years before retirement, Bill told his wife that he wanted to write a novel. He'd had an idea simmering in his head for 10 years. Y'all. And he thought it might be an excellent story to share with the world. The result of that is Pepperman's Promise, the prequel to the Pepperman Mystery Series, which, as Amanda said, there are now 4 books in the series, and more to come. Bill married his wife Liz, who joined him here today. They have 2 daughters, Blythe and Brooke, 2 grandchildren, Chloe and Foster. Bill constantly asks his sons-in-law, Jeff and Justin, to repair broken items. They say having Bill as a helper is like having no help at all. So, I want to put a plug in to sign up for Bill's newsletter. You'll go to his website, sign up for his newsletter. He's so funny. He always has a funny story and a joke in his newsletter. So, please join me in welcoming Bill Briscoe.
Good morning. If you can't hear me, I have a tendency to drop the mic a little bit, so just raise your hand and I'll try to get back in gear. But it's so good to be here. I want to tell you, it's nothing like being around a bunch of writers. And it's just interesting. They're all interesting, and they all have something to offer. And my lesson today, or not lesson, but my topic today is going to be on what?
How can I get that off? I need to see it, but I don't know how to see it.
Okay. I'm going to have to ask a question. I don't know that I can read without some light here. Is anybody?
Okay, wait a minute. I'm
Somebody back there.
Okay, while they're doing this, I want to give you a little bit of more information about myself. As Kim said, about 5 years before I retired, I had an idea about a book. And at the time, we were living in Odessa. So for about 5 years, I thought off and on, and I said, when I retire, I'm going to write this book. Little did I know, it's not that easy. Well, I was fortunate in one way. We live in Canyon, and that's West Texas A&M. And how many of you know Jody Thomas? Okay, everybody knows Jody. Well, I was fortunate enough to go to her writing academy. Now, I had only about 5 pages of a manuscript. And I was in this class of at least, they had 10 to 15 people. All of these people had something published. And I was in there, and it took me about 5 minutes. I said, what in the H am I doing here? Because I had no idea what I was doing. But here's Jody Thomas, and this is her character. She knew that, and she made me feel welcome, and that I could write a book if I wanted to. I've got a lot of thanks goes out to Jody. Now, my books. Okay. All of them if you'll notice, they start with P. The alliteration, I don't know where I come up with this, but why did I have all my books start with a P? I told Liz the other day, I'm going to have to quit writing. I can't think of any words for my new book on P. Well, it's kind of interesting. But the first book is just contemporary fiction. As I've already said, I knew nothing about what I was doing. So after the first one, I said, okay, how can I make this thing go on? Well, the first book is called Pepperman's Promise, and it's about a family that lives in Odessa originally, and they end up moving. I won't get into all of that. But each of my books has that main character in it of the Pepperman family. It's either one or two or three people, but it's all of my books. There's a Pepperman family in every one of them. So, but once again, here's the other thing. I never named any of these books. Not one of them. They all came from people that gave me the idea. So, I'm saying something today. I'm on my 5th book. It starts with a P, and I have no clue what I'm going to name. So, if you got some ideas, show them on to me a little bit. Okay, today's lesson is on clarity. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything today that you don't know or that you haven't heard of. But hopefully some of these things that we mentioned today will help you remember some things. But clarity. Now, a few years back, I took a course at the West Texas Writers Academy, and that's in Canyon. And the topic the lesson that I had was on clarity. Now, Lori Freeland was the instructor, and Lori is now my editor. But this class has helped me more than anything to show me how to write with clarity. It helped me more than anything, and I'm so grateful for that West Texas Writing Academy because it helped me to put words together that's meaningful for the reader. And all of us in here, that's the purpose of your book. It has to have meaning, and it has to read well. The person that's reading it has to be able to understand what you're writing. But the clarity issue for me was really important. But before I get on my subject of clarity, all of us know that the resources you have for your book, the more resources you have, the better that book's going to be. So before we start, I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that I've used. Now, I don't know how many out there are writers of mystery, but I have several books that really help me on mystery and crime. One of those books, the first book, is called Forensic Speaks, and it's how to write realistic crime drama. Now, I don't know about you, but if I pick up a book and I read something and I know that that's not accurate, what do you do with the book? Chunk it. So for me, if you're going to write mystery and it's going to be about crime and there's going to be a lot of police work in it or whatever the book's about, you better be accurate with it. And if you're not accurate with that, then once again, you're going to lose the reader. But the first book is called Forensic Speak, and it's written by Jennifer Dornbush. Now, she's an interesting person. She grew up in a house where her dad was a medical examiner, and he performed autopsies. And their county was small and didn't have many resources. She said it was not uncommon to have blood and tissue samples in her freezer right under the pork chops. I was in the class when this lady told me that, and I said, hey, this lady's got some character. I like In my first book, not my first book, but my book Perplexity, I used this book in forensic things. It's a very good book, and I'll let you look at it. We have it up here. After we finish today, if you want to look at it, you're welcome to it. But the next book is Police Procedures and Investigation by a man by the name of Lee Laughlin. Now, Lee was in the police force for around 10 or 15 years. And everything that you see on your television or a movie about crime shows is not always accurate. But I knew this guy was going to be accurate with his, and I wasn't disappointed. Now this book, once again, it draws on the career of his law enforcement when he was working. Now I use this book to describe interrogation techniques in my book Perplexity. Okay, the other books that I think is very important is Proofreading Secrets by Kathy Ives. Are any of you familiar with her? Well, she's been a published author since 1989, and she founded the Christian Pen and Proofreaders and Editors Network. And I use her book all the time for grammar purposes. Now, the other two books that I have is one is by Angela Ackerman, and the other is by Becca Puglisi. And it's a negative trait thesaurus, and the other one is an emotional thesaurus. So once again, if you want to get an idea of what it's like, the book's like, we have it up here. You're welcome to look at it. Okay, one of the other things that I use for resource, and I think we'll hand this material out to you later, but it's called an emotional wheel. And it describes different words that have similar meanings. I find this very helpful. And like I said, Liz has printed off some things for us, and you can have that after we leave today. Now, let's get on with the story here. How many of you out there know who Yogi Berra is? Raise your hand. Good. I tell you, I love this guy. Okay. Well, Yogi played baseball for the New York Yankees. And it was in the late 50s and 60s, and he may have started in the late 40s. I'm not sure of that. But I remember this guy playing when I was growing up. If you know Yogi Berra, he is famous for what? Yogiisms. Okay, so let's look at a yogiism. If you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. Okay, now, yogi, it's easy to know now. Yogi could have used a class on clarity. So, I'm going to have throughout the subject here today, we're going to have some more yogiisms. Okay, so let's get started with the session on writing with clarity. Okay, we need to delete words that are not necessary. We need to cut those words or phrases that you don't need. So let's look at the example. His words didn't matter to me at all. Okay, how could we write that with clarity? Well, his words didn't matter to me. You don't need the word at all, because it's already there. Let's look at the next one. Nod your head. How many have read stories that have nod your head? Okay. All you need to say is nod. Why? What else do you nod beside your head? So that's what I'm saying. You know, if we've got words in there that we don't need, don't use them. The next one. She was 12 years old. Nothing too much wrong with that, except, let's look at the clarity version. Just write she was 12. We don't need to write years old, because we just told you. Okay, let's go again. Let's stay on with writing type. We need to delete unnecessary words. Let's look at this example. The smile on her face triggered a smile on mine. Now what we need to watch out for is saying the same thing twice. We got smile and smile in the same sentence. So for clarity purposes, her smile triggered mine. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, let's look at the next example. The wind chilled her. Because she was cold, she zipped her jacket against the bite of the breeze. All we need to say is, she zipped her jacket against the chill. So there's words, and I do this all the time. I'll get into it more later. But we all do that. We have a tendency to put things in there that we really don't need. And once again, the writer may pick up on that. So let's continue on. But there is a time to use repetition. We use repetition on purpose when we want to add emotion. Let's look at the example. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't even block her hand when she slaps him hard. 3 words. Doesn't. That shows emotion. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but was there any word in that last sentence that we could have omitted? Let's look at the word hard. Do we need the word hard there? Do we need to say that? Okay, let me read this again. He doesn't even block her hand when she slaps him. We know she's going to slap him hard. She's not going to tap him on the face. So we don't need the word hard. So we'll take it out. Just make it simple. Okay. Clutter. There's always clutter in your writing. Now, when the reader sees the page over there on the left, what do they automatically think about? They think that is difficult. Okay, I'm going to tell you a true story. When I was 16, I tried to read the book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. It's a history of Nazi Germany, and it was written by William L. Shirer. That book was 1,200 pages long. Every page was just like the one on the left. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think I finished that book? No. For one thing, I was 16 years old, and I was interested in this subject. But when I was 16, my attention span wasn't more than 15 seconds. So I did not finish that book. So it's important in your book to use some white space. And white space is a psychological trick. Now, 2 pages may have the same material on it, but one reads much easier. Just look at the 2 pages. Which one would you rather read? Okay. Now, does Snoopy understand white space? Yeah, Snoopy's got it. Yeah, he understands white space. Okay, let's move on. Let's say what you mean. All right, don't get too writerly. Now, Lori Freeman, she's my editor, she sometimes puts unwriterly in her edits. And I know when she says you're being writerly there, I know what she's talking about. So let's look at an example of being writerly. Roger traversed the forest, weaving in and out of trees, setting his feet upon the ground in gregarious steps until the clearing appeared. Sometimes we use words on pages that we don't say in real life. In other words, a dialogue doesn't read. If you're having a conversation, I bet nobody says, I traversed the forest and I went in gregarious steps. You just don't do that. So, stay simple. Let's look at the example. Roger weaved through the great oaks until he reached the clearing. Simple. Just keep it simple. Okay, say what you mean. Here's another example of being writerly. I'll come round and fetch you in my Hummer at 6 o'clock on the dot. Why don't you just say, I'll pick you up at 6? For the reader, that makes a difference. Just keep it simple. Okay, here's another one. Repetitive name calling. Hey Joe, how are you? Fine, Jane. You? Joe, do you want to go for a drive? Sure, Jane. And that's a great idea. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like my primer when I was in the first grade. You remember those? Okay. So you need to notice the next time you have a conversation with someone, how often do you actually repeat that person's name? And how often they repeat yours? So for whatever reason, we forget that when we write. So delete names you don't need. I bet it sounds better when you read it out loud. Drawn out action. Okay. I popped the top of my coat, lifted it to my lips, tipped the can back, took a drink and swallowed, and set it back on the table. Now sometimes simple is just better, especially when it comes to everyday situations. When you write, I sipped my coat, the reader understands you have to open the friggin' can and drink it. But for some reason, when we write, we don't write like we talk. So be specific. Avoid words if you can, like it, this, those, things, them, and that. Let's look at the example. After that, it was over. Well, what is that? Do you know what that is? No, it's vague. After the family had 4 members, it was full. So let's look at the clarity part. All you need to say is, after the family had 4 members, the house was full. Look at all that you could have taken out, just simply by taking a step. So put in real words if you can. Now I know sometimes you can't replace a vague term with a real word. I understand that. And if you need to use it, this, and those, it's fine. But just at times, be careful with it. If you could use another word other than those it's and those and this and that, we'll use it. Okay, sentence length and structure. Now, if you're not sure if you're being repetitive, take a look at your work in progress and what you're writing right now, and circle the first word or phrase in every paragraph. Do you always start with a verb, a noun, or a clause, or an ing word? So that's a good thing to do. Just look at your work. Too many winding sentences tire the reader. Too many short, choppy sentences puts the reader on edge. So vary the way you start your sentences. Now here's what you can do. Just count how many long verses and how many short sentences you have. Read the page out loud. Now, where do you stumble? Where do you take a breath or get irritated with choppiness? Short sentences are great for building emotions, and that's true. But look for places to use them. Okay. Read your page out loud. Now this is important. How many of you read your pages out loud to someone? Raise your hand. Okay, that is great. Now, because you need to read the pages out loud, because what the eye skims, the ear doesn't. Better yet, ask someone else to read your work out loud. Now Liz, my wife, always reads my pages back to me. Then I read them back to her. And you'd be surprised what you find out when you do this. Now someone came up to me and said, you know, you shouldn't have a spouse or a family member read your work because they're not going to be honest with you. Well, my wife's not that way. And she tells me, hey, that stinks. Or, hey, you need to do this or that. And, okay, all right. But she's right. Now, but if you have a spouse that's not going to be honest with you, then you need to get somebody else to read it. But here's why she needs to read it. Because Liz may interpret what I write different than what I intended. Now that happens a lot because when you're writing, you know what you're thinking, but when those words come out and someone else reads it, they may interpret that differently. If there is any disconnect between what your reader reads and what you intended for them to imagine, and you're going to lose them. So I can't overemphasize the importance of reading over and over your own pages and having someone read it to you. Okay, you must hear it first. Now this is where I was really bad when I started out, and I still mess up on it. Action versus reaction. Now my editor Lori hammered me on this all the time. And she'd do it by putting one of those little smiley emojis on the side. She says, action must come before reaction. You have to hear the voice before you can describe it. I'm bad, and I'm still bad about that. So I have to be very careful with it. So here's the example. She whispered, "You're too close." For clarity purpose, "You're too close," she whispered. You must have the action before you have a reaction. Here's another one. With great sarcasm, he added, "Why are you here?" Well, why are you here? His heavy tone was a mix of sarcasm and disbelief. Remember, you've got to have an action before you have a reaction. Once again, that's a big fault of mine. I don't know why it is, but I think it's that way with a lot of people. Now, you know you're a writer when you take a 15-minute writing break and that ends up lasting for 10 months. Okay, ing words. Now, my editor told me this. She said, don't start a chapter with an ing word. And according to her research, new rules that are writing rules that are floating around in the industry say that starting a sentence with an ing word is a sign of an amateur. Okay. I was wondering, if J.K. Rowling started her sentence with an ing, you think it'd be okay? Yeah. She started, you get the point. Now, if I didn't answer it, here's an example. Well, let's go on to the ing word. Not the ing word, but the I word. Now, this using the I is hard for me to do because I write in the first person. So I go back on every page and count the I's that I have. Now let's take a look at this first sentence. If I didn't get answers soon, insanity would destroy me. There's nothing wrong with that sentence. It's correct. But if you've got 5 or 6 I's on the first page, you need to take that out. So how do you do that? And once again, if you write in the first person, it's so easy to have, you look through there, you've got 10 eyes on one page, or 2 pages. So, and this is hard, it's not hard to do, but you have to work at it. So here's the way I would write it in clarity. Answers had to come soon, or insanity would destroy me. Okay? This came from my book, Panic Point. And this is how I wrote it the first time. And that was, once again, I hate to repeat myself, but I had to go back and on that page, I can't remember exactly how many eyes I had, but I needed to take it out. So here, this is how I did it. It's hard to do sometimes, but you can do it. Use strong action verbs. Okay. Lori, once again, my editor tells me to go back and use stronger action verbs all the time. I do it. I do what she says. I send it back to her and she says, not strong enough. Do it again. So I do it again. She writes back, okay, you've almost got it. Do it again. Well, this was 3 or 4 times. She told me to do it again. So finally, I just called her up and I said, Lord, you are wearing me out. I said, I swear, somebody took out your brain and replaced it with one of my old college coaches. Because I could hear that over and over. Do it again, do it over. You're not doing it right. Do it again, do it again. Well, but she's got a point. So here's the example. Norvell folded his handkerchief and put it in his back pocket. This is the way I wrote it the first time. So I went back, used stronger verbs. Norvell crumpled his handkerchief and shoved it in the back of his pocket. Do you see the difference? Yeah, those stronger verbs have a lot to do with what's going on and the way it comes across. Okay, I had to look at this 3 or 4 times before I finally got this cartoon. It said, odd, what kind of a pastry comes with a thesaurus? And if you'll notice on here, it's got synonym wrong. So, you know, when I first read it, I don't get it. Well, I had to look closely. Oh, now. Okay, we're going to have some fun here. Now, how many of you know who Margie Lawson is? Okay, let me tell you something. Margie Lawson is a great writer's coach. She wrote at she had a session at one of the West Texas Writers Academy, about 45 years ago. But here's Margie's background. She's a psychologist. Okay, we're going to have some fun today. And we're going to hand out a sheet that she gave to us. Now, once again, when she handed out this sheet, she wanted to do a style survey. I thought, well, what could this be? But this is a lot of fun. I think you're going to enjoy this. Now, there is no right or wrong answers. Well, it's way... Okay, now we got it. Okay, I'm going to hand out this sheet. And before I do, there's a lot of little things that you have to do. So I'm going to read this first. And then you can do it. Now, there is no right or wrong answers to this. But let me tell you why this is important. It may tell you something about yourself that you don't know. And it may explain how you write. So listen, once again, this is a psychologist, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, you want to hand these out?
And I'm also going to hand this sheet that has the, where you can find the emotions wheel. And so I'm going to hand, and so you can use it.
Okay, I'll explain that when we get it. Okay, now while she's handing this out, does anybody have any questions over anything that we, that I've talked about so far? Was I unclear on some things? So, yes.
What was the name of your editor?
My editor, her name is Lori Freeland. She lives in Dallas. Now, I met her, she was also a speaker at one of the Writers Academy. And after it was over, I said, I think I need this lady. So I just went up and asked her. I said, Lori, will you edit my work? And she looked at me and said, I don't know what she was thinking, but she looked at me and said, okay. Because I think she was probably thinking, I think you need me. But she is a great editor, and I'll tell you why she's great. She just doesn't edit your work. She didn't edit my work. She coaches me. And how does she coach me? Well, she coaches you just like any other coach. Just like those old football coaches of mine. Do it again. She doesn't tell me the answer. She says, do it again. Okay? Do it over. Or do it better. That's why I like her. And she has helped me more than anything. Okay, does everybody have a sheet? Okay, read along with me with the instructions. Now, there's not a bunch of stuff here, but it may not be clear. So let's go over this if you'll read along with me. Cover the first row so only one row is visible. There's 10 rows, so when you start this, cover up that only the first row. Cover the rest. Now, read along with me. In each row, identify the behavior which is the most and least characteristic of you. Give yourself 4 points to the behavior that's most like you, 3 points to the behavior that's next like you, then 2 points, and then 1 point for the behavior that's least like you. Now here's where it maybe gets confusing. On that first line, all 4 of the competitive, persuasive, according, and curious must have a number. It either can be 1, 2, 3, or 4. But every one of these has to have a number. Which one that you describe that fits you? Okay? Now, do that all the way through down 10. Just take that and give yourself which is most like you and what's least like you. 4 being most like you, 1 being the least like you. Okay, when we finish that, we'll go from there.
Anybody need a pen?
Hey, this is a lot of fun.
Hey, every time I go to the bank, I get 2 or 3 pens, so I got plenty. Anybody else need one?
Okay, is everybody through? Okay, now, here's what you need to do. Under the column of red, green, blue, or yellow, total up those numbers. Like total up for the number of red and total green. You should come up to 100. Time you total them all up, it should be 100.
I was on that too.
Okay? All right. Which column has the most numbers and which column has the second most numbers? One is going to be your dominant color and the other one is going to be your secondary color. Okay. All right. Now once again, there's no right or wrong answers here, but it may tell you something about yourself. All right, how many of you had the most dominant color was red? Okay. How many green? many blue? Okay. How many yellow? Okay. All right. So let's look at what red, if your dominant color was red, let's look what that means. If you're red, you're a driver. You're disciplined, effective, energetic, keep others focused, impatient with delays.
Hurry up, would you?
Is this over yet?
Okay. If you're green, you're expressive, outspoken, spontaneous, fun, generate enthusiasm, distractible. If you're blue, you're amiable, caring, sensitive, supporting others, confident in them, less likely to take risks. If you're 4, you're analytical. Yellow, analytical, fact-oriented, organized, may appear detached, fully accessed before making a decision. All right, how many reds are in here?
Yellow.
Red, yellow.
Okay, reds. How many greens again? How many blues? Okay. How many yellows? Okay. Now, I took this 5 years ago, whatever it was, and I'll just say, well, I'll just see if it works out again. Well, I took it, and I can't remember what my numbers were, but my 2 dominant colors were the same. So that was an indication to me that this little exercise may have some validity to it. So this is just something fun to do.
What are you doing?
What?
What are your colors?
My colors were red and yellow. Okay. When Liz did this, she said, in this last one where it says impatient with delays, she said, I know it's accurate because that describes it perfectly.
And I'm blue and green. I am too.
It takes all 4 colors for us to get through life.
Okay, that's just something to have fun with. But once again, when you get home, look at that and analyze it a little bit. It may be accurate with you, it may not be. But I think it's pretty accurate. And I went back when I did it the first time and looked at my writing, and my writing was a reflection of my personality.
Because the crime writers all
Once
get
again, there's no right or wrong here. It just calls me about myself. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, let's move on then. And let's look at lines that need work. Okay. Now, when I did this, the first time, Twitter was a profile. We know Twitter's not a profile now. It's called X. But I took this off of, at the time, a Twitter. And here's what it said. Check out this website I set up for you to check out all my work. Hey, what's wrong with that? Well, he's got 2 words, same words, the same sentence. Check and check. It's too wordy. And they want people to read what you've got, and if it's too wordy, you probably skip over it. So, here's a way it could have been written. Check my website. Why? It's simple. And then, or check this website for my work. So, a lot of times, as a writer, you've got to be careful. And I am the world's worst about adding words or doing things. So that's why I always check my work. I have somebody check it. Okay, lines that need work. This is a line from a book. I can't remember what it is. Let's read that. He had the blackest hair she'd ever seen. It almost had a tinge of blue when the sunlight shone through the ceiling-height windows at an angle that shone right down on him at times like a spotlight. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I took this I took this sentence, and this is how I may be adding clarity to it. I'm not saying it's a right way. You may do it different, but here's how I did it to try to make it better. He had the blackest hair she had ever seen. It had a tinge of blue when spotlighted by the sunlight. Okay. Did that make better sense? Yeah, and you could do the same thing. You'd probably come up with something better. But just think about the reader. They're not thinking about all this consciously, but they're reading that over and they say, this is close. They may think it's so, or that this may come to them that this is difficult. And what's the purpose of your writing? It's to make it easy, to make it understandable to the reader. Okay, let's look at another one that lines that need work. We rested on the plane after our meal. Kowalski said he'd go over the 5 parameters of the operation when we landed. All of us had the experience with these steps before a mission, and they were vital if the rescue was going to be successful. That came from my book. That's the way I first wrote it. Okay, so I had to go back. Now, probably Lori chewed me out for it, but I had to go back, and here's how I changed it. The men and I rested on the plane after our meal. Kowalski said after we landed, he'd go over the 5 parameters of the operation. They were vital for the rescue to be successful. Now, I took out 18 words off of that first paragraph. So, like I say, I get wordy just like all of us do. So you got to, you know, it may help the writing to chop off a few things. Okay. Let's look at another one that lines that need work. Kowalski's tone was skeptical and dropped off with each word. Is there anything wrong with that sentence? No, not really. There's nothing wrong with that sentence unless, let me read this. Kowalski's skeptical tone dropped off with each word. This came out of my book. And like I told you, I use I because I write it in the first person. I also use was all the time. So I had to go back. So the example needed a little work, and I got rid of was. Why? Because on that same page I had 10 I's, I had 14 was's. So I had to take out the was. Now, you may think it's hard to do that, and it is. How do you take out a was? Well, you have to restructure. So I'm going to read the clarity part again. Kowalski's skeptical tone dropped off with each word. I hope that made it better. That came from my book, Panic Point. All right, let's go to the next one. A voice came over the intercom. Please take a seat and buckle up. Prepare to take off. Okay, for clarity purposes, please take a seat and buckle up. A crackled voice came over the intercom. Prepare to take off. Remember, here's why I slipped up. You got to have action must come before the reaction. That's how I wrote it the first time. I still do. So I've got to be careful. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, here's a yogiism. Love yogi. You can only observe a lot by watching. You know, you got to think of, well, this guy's an idiot. You know, he just, why does he talk that way? But if you read those things and think about it a little bit, they make a lot of sense. You can only observe by watching. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Don't use said all the time. The word said all the time. Example. I love your vet, Joe said. Birthday present, Roger said. Wow, I got an Xbox for my birthday, Joe said. Okay, so let's look at this a little different. I love your vest. Joe's eyes wide. Birthday present. Roger shrugged and opened the car door. Wow, Joe's mouth hung open a moment, and then he closed it. I got an Xbox. Okay. Now, don't use said all the time as a tag. Use action beats. Give the speaker action, and the reader will know who's talking. So constantly using said makes the dialogue really boring. Use action beats gives you a chance to show body language, emotions, setting. So take advantage of it. Okay, that being said, if you must use a tag word, you can use said. There's nothing wrong with using said. No, I'm not telling you don't ever use it. But it's almost a non-word, and readers skip over it. So it doesn't interrupt the story as long as you don't use said a lot of the times. But you need to throw away tags such as ask, replied, cried, begged, or called. Now, I'm not saying don't ever use these words, but other words, these words that I just mentioned may be distracting. So it could pull the reader out of the scene. So like I said, you can't always not use words and tags like I just mentioned, but use them sporadically if you can. Okay, the next one. KJ was happy. KJ slid across the floor, twirled in a tight circle, smiled, and clapped her hands. Okay. We can't just say you're happy. You just shouldn't say that. So you've got to add something to it. And that goes back to every time you pick up a book on writing, or go to a seminar, or take an online class, you hear show, don't tell, don't you? Show, don't tell. Now, one of the hardest skills is to put that in practice. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now? Okay, sorry. Okay, so show, don't tell. It is a hard thing to do, and I still I deal with it. Now, to really pull an emotional punch and suck in your reader, it's a good idea to move beyond and dig into showing. So KJ, the next time you go out dancing, you got to flip and all that stuff. Okay. Let's go on to telling versus showing. Now, the definition of that is simply telling is saying outright what the character is doing. Now, sometimes, and Lori disagrees with me on this, I'm sure, but sometimes I think it's okay to simply just tell. But you gotta, you don't want to do that all the time, but I do it. Sometimes I just tell, and I think it's okay. But the definition of showing is painting a visual word picture of what the character feels, usually without using actual words. So let's read some of this. Ben was mad at Jerry for dancing with his girlfriend. Is there anything wrong with that? No, not really. But let's look at a different version. Ben stepped into the doorway. Not 10 feet away, Jerry danced with Anna. His Anna. Jerry held her close. They swayed to the music, barely a space between them. Anna had her eyes closed. Ben's mouth pulled tight. So much for trusting best friends. We know that Ben's mad, but what do you need to do? Show it. Tell it. Okay, what is it? When you tell it, when you show it, what does the reader do? They visualize it, don't they? Well, whatever they create in their mind, whatever it is, that's okay. I may read that, or Liz may read it differently, but the emotion that that person reads is going to stick with them. Okay. Let's hand out, well, we're going to take another break, and I'm going to hand out some chocolate. Who doesn't like chocolate? Okay, no. Okay. So we're going to have a little experiment here. Okay.
Take 2 or 3. Is this like communion that we have to wait?
Where's the wine?
The Eucharist tastes like chocolate. Go to church.
Please take the order.
So we don't have to take it home.
Yes.
There's 3 and I've got 2. We're going to need some more here.
She's getting some more.
Okay, need one more.
I'm sure it's everyone has. She's got on that. Let me get a couple.
Did you say we had to wait?
There you go.
Give him a couple there.
Has everybody got
Everybody's already reading your chocolate.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We have some that's already eaten their chocolate.
Shame on us.
So give those people another chance.
Don't eat it yet.
Okay. If you've already eaten your chocolate, don't eat this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the same as blues ate the chocolate? The red's got
Red's got 2 pieces egg on the thing, yeah.
I have done this exercise before.
Yeah, who said the green? Did you say that? The green? All right. If you ate your chocolate and your high score was green, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, make sure nobody's eating that second piece. Right, hold your hand up with your chocolate. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Take your chocolate and unwrap it. Now don't eat it. Take your chocolate and unwrap it.
He's been out of school long, but she'll
Okay.
direction.
Smell it. Now knock it in your mouth. Now eat it. Okay. Okay. The first example, I love chocolate, Mary said. But let's listen to the next one. There's no dialogue in it. Mary scooped another chocolate candy from the dish and held it by her nose, breathed in the delicious smell, and popped it into her mouth. Which one was better? The last one. Okay? So that's the difference between showing and telling. And that's what you want your reader to think about. Okay. Now, we're almost through today. We're almost through today. And here's 10 things that people say to creative writers, but shouldn't say. All right, has someone ever said to you, you still writing your little book or your poems? Must be nice to have a real job, to not have a real job. Writing doesn't sound too difficult. Oh, yeah? I thought when I read this, yeah, well, you try it. You know? You don't think it's difficult, get out a pen and paper. I always thought I'd write that book after I retired, once I had some time to kill. Wait a second. Creative writing degrees, are they a real thing? Yeah, duh. Have you ever been punished? Don't strangle people when they say that to you.
You didn't do that in your book.
Can I be a character in one of your stories? No, but if you are, that make you a villain. So I have this great idea I think you should be using in your book. Well, if it's such a great idea, why don't you write it? Aren't writers just professional liars? They tell stories for a living after all. Well, you know what? I can't disagree with that. I write fiction and I'm a big liar, so I couldn't argue with that one. Number 10, you're writing a book. Tell me everything. Well, you want the short version or the long version? So that winds it up today for me. Let's close with this. Don't forget, no one else sees the world the way you do. No one else can tell the stories that you can tell. That's true. Okay. Now, that ends my part. But I want to tell you, Liz is my marketer. And I want to tell you, she works as hard or harder than I do. If you're writing your book and if you're not good with the computer and how to market on the internet, you need to find somebody that is. Because it's impossible to me, it's impossible to write a book and market too. So if you want to get good at marketing, get someone to help you. And if you have a spouse, like I do, that's good at it, then you're lucky. But if you don't, spend some money on get a college kid that knows something about internet. Because it's just key to marketing your product. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I hope what I've said today has been some help to you. I know I didn't say anything that you haven't already heard. But sometimes, once again, it may be important, to review on some of these things. And how many of you have an editor? Okay. I want to tell you a story on the editor. Right when I started writing, I read that Stephen King wrote, he had an editor. And I can't remember what book it was, but he decided, I don't need an editor. You know what? That book was a flop. And it's a flop because you need somebody like Lori knows a lot more about writing than I do. She knows how to put things, and she doesn't, it's not the grammar and things like that I need help with. But it's saying, Bill, if you would take this sentence and move it up, it's more meaningful. Or if you would take this sentence and delete it altogether because it's being repetitive. So she does things like that.
And she has an editor.
Oh, sure,
She has an editor.
absolutely. I don't know of an author that doesn't have an editor. So if you don't have an editor, get you a good one because it'll make all the difference. Okay, ready, Liz? Okay, Kim, you ready? All right, we're ready to go.
Would you hand this up? Yes, my part won't take long. I'll try to, no, my stuff's in your book. This part we didn't get to practice. Just so you'll set it right here. I really get to do the fun part of this because none of my work starts until he finishes a book. And so, well, if you want to just keep it there inside. Okay. Okay. So what I do, I'm Bill's assistant, and basically I do what he asked me to do. But my work started when he finished Pepperman's Promise, and as each book comes along, I continue to market each one. Now, on Bill's first book project, someone gave us this idea. Not a lot of people knew he was writing a book. And so we mailed out 100 copies of the paperback, Pepperman's Promise, to friends and family. Like I say, a lot of them didn't know he was writing. And we wrapped each book like in tissue paper and I put raffia ribbon on. I thought it was a little more masculine looking than curly ribbon. And he put a little note on each one saying about writing the book, and it would be coming out for 99 cents. And would they buy the 99-cent book so that their review would be considered a verified review? And probably out of those 100 books, I would say he got 60 reviews. And here's what it looked like. I went to Dollar Tree, bought their packages of colored tissue paper, and I ordered 1 meal of raffia ribbon off of Amazon, and I used it for like 3 years. But we had those envelopes all over our house. Bill addressed every one of those. And then after we got started on that, we started using postcards to mail out to people. So he actually came out with 2 books at the same time, his first 2 books. And so the first one is called The Prequel, and then Perplexity is the book 1 of the mystery series. When he first wrote Pepperman's Promise, I think he thought he was going to write 1 book. We didn't give any thought to how titles and volumes might play into this. But when he got to the end of it, he said, well, I don't know what else to write about. And one night we were sitting there talking, and he had the first chapter of the next book. He decided to take that contemporary fiction book, but take the characters that he had already introduced and turn it into a mystery series. And so this postcard is a tool that I carry a lot. I carry them in my purse. I said every marking assistant needs a great Ziploc baggie with postcards in it, and that's what I do. Now he has 4 books, and I got these from Vistaprint, and once I got the format of the first one set up, and this was just one of their formats, I just go in and readjust it every time we add something new to it. And our cover artist, I asked her to create those for us. His cover artist, not my cover artist. Okay, and So I just edit it as the new books come along. Now, when we first did this, we put Bill Briscoe and his address and the 4 lines at the bottom. And he hand wrote, the first 2 books we just did Amazon. But he'd say, these books are available on Amazon. And as he went wide, we had more and more information. And it's almost impossible to write all of that. And it was kind of like, duh, Liz, you can put all that on the back of a postcard. And so now, all we have to do is address postcards. And like I say, this is one of my best marketing tools. When I talk to somebody, I just say, do you read? Yes. Well, guess what? I got somebody you might be interested in. And you'd be surprised how many sales we make out of. If I could just talk one-on-one to people, I could sell a lot of books. But I don't have that opportunity. I need more. Okay. Now let's look at this screen. It's going to be hard to tell a little bit. But on Perfect Payback, that is his newest book. And so when a new book comes out, we want people to know that is the new one. So I buy, it's the Avery 18660 clear address labels, and I print new release, 2 of them on each label, cut them, and stick it on the front of the postcard. Well, by the time you blend that in, people won't know but what is printed there. But this is what I use on those. And but there's a problem with this postcard. If you look, it says the prequel, books 1, 2, and 3. But this one actually has volume 3, volume 1, volume 2, and the prequel. Well, when we sent to the cover artist asking her to put all 4 books together, she must not have remembered what the order of it was. And so I was so excited to get it back and get it out in the mail, I didn't pay attention. And it was like 6 months later, it dawned on me, this was all in the wrong order. And so we had to go back, have her do it again, where it's in order. But I said, I want the newest book where it can be highlighted. So now this one has everything in the right order. So pay attention. People make mistakes, and that happens. All right, now tie your launch to a special day. Or it could just be a promotion that you're having. Tie it to Christmas. If you're about to launch a book, promote it at Christmas, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, book birthdays. We celebrate book birthdays, at least the first book birthday. But in our society, you can make any day a special holiday. Like, oh, maybe if you want to launch a summer book, beach reads, this is Happy Beach Day, or take your puppy floating in the swimming pool day, anything like that. But what we had settled on, and it just kind of happened by chance, is 50th is something we're tied to. All right, next. When Bill came out with Pepperman's Promise and Perplexity in 2017, he came out with those in May. And that summer, he gets an invitation to the 50th anniversary for his college graduation. They were highlighting the 50-year anniversary people. And it was like, oh my goodness, who ever thought about this? So I was so excited. And they're always, on the alumni office, is wanting to know what people are doing. So I go to the alumni office and I say, Bill graduated 50 years ago, and the 50th year, he came out with 2 books, and they have a magazine that comes out quarterly, and I thought, well, that'd be a great story to tell. Well, when the magazine comes out, the cover. It's some guy that had donated $80 million to the university, so Bill got bumped. But at the very back, on the last page, under class of 67, it tells about Bill's books.
Way to go, Bill.
He was very gracious in letting someone else get the cover. Well, then in Panic Point, he released in 2019. And guess what? That was our 50th wedding anniversary was in 2019. So, my goodness, we're kind of locked into the 50 now. So when Perfect Payback came out in 2022, we just thought, well, gosh, we got to find something that's a 50th anniversary. And guess what? It was the 50th anniversary of the first episode of MASH, and these magazines were like every grocery counter. And so we kind of tied that to it. So this next book he's working on will be 2024. So we started looking to see what could be the 50th anniversary. How many of you are old enough to remember the Rumble in the Jungle? All right. That was George Foreman and Muhammad Ali in a boxing match in Africa. And I mean, it was big. But I got to tell you something. And it was just this morning we discussed it. In 1974, our first child was born. So, are we going to go with 50 years from the birth of my first child, or are we going to go with Rumble in the Jungle? He said Rumble in the Jungle. But it's funny. I mean, it just dawned on me last night because we were talking to our daughter. She said, I'm almost 50 years old. And then I guess you don't like to think of your children being that age. Now, you'll notice on the bottom, book 5 is still untitled. It's set to release. As Bill said, all of his titles start with a P. There's no and, there's no the, they're all P words. And if you'll see, once the mystery started, it has the red band across there. And so, truly, if you have some P words, because, all right, this is the first book. I'm going to read one paragraph on page 7. I'm not giving the story away. But Jim Pepperman is the main character. He's 17. He comes home from football practice from Odessa, Permian, to find out that his dad had died in an oil field accident. And there was one thing that bothered me. This is Jim. Dad had been a driller on an oil rig for 20 years. On the day of his death, the steel cable that hoisted the pipe to the top of the derrick parted, then snapped. The falling pipe crushed him. Dad should have noticed the drilling line was frayed and replaced it. That was careless. Dad wasn't careless, ever. And a lot of people, when they read this, they said, oh, Bill, you left yourself open to write another book about Dad. Well, 35 years later, Jim Pepperman gets a phone call and says, your dad's death was not an accident. And so this book he's writing right now is going that route. And we need P words that tie into mystery thriller. So if you have any suggestions, please grab us before we go. Now, we have just started Instagram. And I just don't know how to do all of that stuff. And we have Canva Pro, I can build things, but we have hired somebody to help us, to get us going on that. And so, how many of you have your cell phones? Pull your cell phone out. Don't you want to see if you got any text messages while you've been here? Okay. Now, if you will go to Indie Author Engine, that, and I have just started that. I had my first post on it like last week. But Bill's a self-published author. I want to be a supporter to introduce and support indie authors. And when I talk to an indie author, I want them to give me a helpful hint to pass on to other indie authors. So, how many of you have Instagram on your phone? Would you go to Indie Author Engine right now? You don't have...
It's hard to get.
Oh, okay. Well, I want you to go there, and I want you to follow me. And so that's my page. And it may show up as Liz Briscoe too. Does it? But Indie Author Engine. I chose that because it's the engine of a train that pulls and supports and brings along the other cars on the train. Plus, we have all kinds of search engines on the internet. All right. Now, let's go. Now, here's Bill's page. It's Bill Briscoe Books. Now, I'm going to try something. All right, let's go to the next one. Take out your camera, zoom in on that, and does a little yellow tag say Instagram? If it does, click on that. And that should take you right to his page. And you can follow him. And he'll follow you back. Now, are you on Bill's Instagram page? And if you're not, you can go to Instagram and click on Bill Briscoe Books. Are any of you on his Instagram page? Okay. Do you see where it's got like the little link, billbriscoe.com/books and 2 O? Well, click on those little dots after the 2. Okay, Kim, the next page. All right, and you see on that page where it says billbriscoe.com/books and 2. Now, when you click on that, and we'll go to the next screen. And when you click that, you can go to his website where you can buy his books. You can sign up for a free book. If you sign up for his newsletter, Bill sends you the email copy free of Pepperman's Promise. And 2 of his books, the last 2, are on audio. And thank you, Cactus. You just said his audio books are great. And what we're trying to do with this Instagram right now is to build a bigger audience so that when the new books come out, we have a ready-made audience. Because it's been a while since he's come out with the book, and we thought that this would be a great way to build his audience. Now, one of the last things I'm going to say is I have 2 posters over here, and when I walked in, KJ said, "Oh, wow, look at those posters." We printed. You can print those sheets at Walmart, and then we buy a can of spray adhesive and the thick poster board, And every time he comes out with a new book, we have I believe this is the 20 by 24 or 16 by 20, I'm not sure. We just go down there and print it off. Like this little one, we created this with his new book. And that's kind of what I do. Bill did bring his books. He's got some postcards up here. His books are for sale. His books are all $10 each. And on behalf of both of us, we want to thank you for your hospitality today. And it's been kind of fun to come down here and do this and see people that we've known and meet new people. Anything else you want to end up with? Well, I guess that's it for us. Thank you.
That was great. Y'all are so good.
I don't know if we can get you sell books.
Thank you. We're so happy to have you be here, and thank you. You're great. Okay, so we just have a little bit more, and then we're going to adjourn. But do we have any member news? Does anybody have anything new? Okay.
At between 2 and 4 o'clock today, I'll be at Barnes & Noble. I'm doing a book signing of my latest book, The Desperation of Marla Adams. It's a medical thriller.
Oh, okay, good. And that's today?
Today, between 2 and 4 o'clock.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. Does anyone know?
We have a ride-in for NaNoWriMo this afternoon at 3 o'clock at the Market Street on 19th.
Go to his signing first. And then
Yeah, go to the sign.
there you
Go to the sign and then
Come on,
ride. 1,600 words today, girls and boys.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Well, I have a new book that came out Tuesday. It's ebook only right now, and then my publisher is going to delay the print version till March, I think. But anyway, I don't know. They're crazy. They're British. They're British, so who knows? Who knows? But also, I want to say, I have now put all 3 of my self-published books in audio. They're in Audible. I did that. I started right after our program a couple of months ago, and it inspired me to get busy on that. And because I didn't know anything about it, I didn't know. I thought you had to pay thousands of dollars to get one. Our programs are so important, and you learn, you find out new things, and and we've had some really, really good programs this year. And thank you, Kim, for that. Anyway, I guess we'll have the,
I guess I should mention that we just published, these are my nationally published short stories that we put in a book. KJ helped me with the cover. And so, anyway, it came out.
oh, okay. Okay, does anyone else? Oh, Sterling.
Yeah, I think some of you already know this, but for the past year, I've been querying a graphic novel project to literary agents. And it took 6 or 8 months, but I finally found one, and I'm now represented by an agent.
Yay!
then if anybody will sign up at my website, thomasjnichols.com, and get a free ebook, and you can also get a copy of my monthly newsletter. We don't spam, we don't sell.